South Africa's parliamentary precinct have been destroyed in a fire that ripped through the National Assembly yesterday. The cause of the fire is currently under investigation, and a 51-year-old man's been detained for questioning. Public Works Minister Patricia de Lille says yesterday that the sprinkler system may have been tampered with. Since the last fire drill was held before Parliament closed for the holiday break, Sunday's blaze is the second fire in less than a year after an electric fault caused the fire in March of last year. My guest is fire safety engineer Karel Roodt, who joins me on the line to explain some of the possible reasons for the blaze. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for joining us, Karel. What could have possibly happened in this instance?
Good morning. Yeah, it's an sorry incident. It's a disaster. If you look at the fire that occurred, my question would be, how is it possible that a sprinkler system valves are closed if they're supposed to be locked in an installation control valve chamber? Who would have been able to gain access to such a room without having keys? The other question that when I heard what was stated within the different news commentators from J.P. Smith and Mrs. Patricia de Lille, is the smoke detection only initiated once the fire department arrived on the scene. It's a concern because the smoke detection is probably the most important system in the building to provide an early warning to notify that there is a fire still in small states or incipient states. And only once the fire department arrived on the scene, the alarms only went off. So how was the smoke detection system maintained, and why did it only activate after the fire department arrival? Because we can actually note that the response time of the fire department was 6 minutes. However, the fire was already out of control long before that. If the whole building, the House of Assemblies, was destroyed already when the fire department arrived there. So it seems that there should be questions asked in the maintenance of the fire systems, the smoke detection system as well as the sprinkler system, and why did it not operate? Was it actually sabotage? Was it maliciously, or was it a failure on maintenance?
You raise, as you ask these questions, it really raises questions on the processes that constantly need to be followed and checked to maintain fire safety, especially in a building such as Parliament. What are some of these safety checks that need to have been done and perhaps monitored on a day-to-day to ensure that should an incident like this occur, it doesn't become as significant as we're seeing?
Yes, that's correct. The big thing with fire safety management is the maintenance of fire systems. With regards to smoke detection systems, there is daily checks, there is weekly checks, there's quarterly checks, and then there's annual checks. And what we call in our industry an inspection, testing, and maintenance schedules that needs to be kept up to date. Like smoke detection system, like I said, it's a very important system for a building like this national key point. And if there's a failure in the maintenance of it, then the possibility is, as was stated in some of the commentators, is that the detection system only went off after the arrival of the fire department, and we could easily assume that the fire was already raging an hour to 45 minutes before the fire department's arrival. And how was it not detected? Why, a smoke detection should be able to detect within a couple of minutes after a small fire. It should have already raised an alarm. Therefore, the concern is, How was it possible? My opinion is that the records or the maintenance records must be reviewed, and who failed in being responsible to do this task. And then also we're talking about a national key point. It's probably one of our country's most important buildings, and yet somebody can gain access to a high secure space and close off sprinkler valves. It just doesn't make sense. How can somebody get access to the sprinkler control valve chamber and close the valves? And then again, we need to go to the records and the maintenance records and see what was maintained, and was it actually maintained, or was the valve just switched off because of something wrong in the system? And I believe if proper investigation is done, they would probably find the source of all these mistakes. And I'm of the opinion that there is mistakes made here.
As you speak to proper investigations, and we know that as of yesterday, police were given 48 hours to come up with a report which will speak to what some of their suspicions may be. What do you believe that report may contain when it comes to pointing to some of these suspicions?
I understand that there was a audit conducted in 2020 with 30 items raised, and it would be interesting to have a view on this report and understand what was highlighted. In a building like the House of Parliament, it's a 4-story building, and usually in the fire safety design, you compartmentalize each floor, which would prevent the fire spreading from one floor to the other. And the feedback that we've seen on the media with regards to from the fire department, there was a fire on the first and the fourth floor. Was these fires maliciously arson, or was it the spread from one floor to the other? Looking at the devastating consequences of this fire, it would presume that it have spread from one space to the other space and went out of control because of the advanced fire safety systems not being in place or operational at the time of the fire.
The President has also commended firefighters for intervening at the right time. I mean, you speak about the pace of the fire and the manner in which it spread. Firefighters came at the right time. How exactly did they manage to contain this fire, as you give us a breakdown on the different settings of the building?
I think the response time of the fire department was excellent. That we can recommend them to say well done. However, if the smoke detection system operated as it was supposed to, they would have been notified far more in advance than what they were notified. The devastation of this fire would not have been as disastrous as it has happened, because if the detection system operated as it was supposed to, the fire department would have been notified long before the actual notification that they received, and they would have been able to do the necessary firefighting approaches to the building much quicker while the fire was still small. However, the concern again comes back to maintenance on that fire detection system. So yes, it is concerning to listen to the different comments that was made. But the fire department's response time was good, but they were not notified as in advance as it would have been if there was a proper operating smoke detection system.
You raise those concerns about a proper detection system and how maintenance is an important part. And we know that the President yesterday was also speaking about measures that need to be put in place to avoid such incidents in the future. When it comes to the priority list of those measures, what do you think will need to come, perhaps in the top 3 of the priorities to ensure that this occurrence does not happen again?
It's quite easy. In the national building regulations, there's a fire safety functional regulations that any building must comply to, and it's 5 items. The one is the safe escape of people out of the building, allowing people to find their way quite quick and get out of the building safely during a fire incident. The second one is to prevent fire spread within the building. Compartmentalizing the different occupancy zones or different portions of building would have a great effect on preventing a fire spreading the way it did yesterday. Then there's structural stability that prevents the building from collapsing during a fire. It needs to be able to withstand a duration in time of a fire and not just collapse quite quickly or easily. Then there's the next item is smoke control. If you can get the hot gases and smoke out of the building quick, it will not promote or generate a quick spreading fire or generate intense heat within the building, as the hot smokes will be able to be vented out. And the 5th item is the provision of smoke detection fire suppression systems to aid the fire departments in their firefighting procedures and processes.
Very well. Thank you so much for that analysis and breakdown. Karel Roodt, a fire safety engineer, speaking to some of the processes that need to be followed. And, of course, as questions are being raised on the motive behind this fire and investigations are ongoing.